My sister offered to host the family breakfast at my house while I was at work, until my smart camera notified me who had put my beloved family dog in the cold garage. There is a very specific kind of heartbreak that occurs when a family member treats your home and the living creatures inside it as nothing more than an inconvenient prop for their personal status. For over 10 years, I've lived in a quiet, cozy suburban neighborhood in Arlington, Virginia. The absolute heart of our household is Barney, our 12-year-old golden retriever. Barney is deeply arthritic, completely sweet, and essentially my third child. Because of his joint pain, he has a specialized, heated orthopedic bed nestled right in the warmest corner of our kitchen where he can watch the family. This year, when our extended family scheduled a holiday reunion, my younger sister, Sienna, who styles herself as a high-end social media lifestyle influencer, made a seemingly angelic proposal. Knowing I had a mandatory 3-hour shift at my corporate firm on Christmas Eve morning, she offered to step in. "Let me host the grand family holiday breakfast at your place while you're at the office," she insisted, flashing a practiced smile. "You work so hard, you deserve to just walk into a beautiful morning." Touched by her sudden maturity, I handed her my spare house key, but the illusion of sisterly devotion shattered at exactly 10 a.m. While sitting at my desk, my phone buzzed with an emergency notification from my smart home security app. I opened the live video feed, expecting to see family members laughing over coffee. Instead, I watched my sister calmly pick up Barney's heavy orthopedic bed, drag it out to our detached, unheated concrete garage, and guide our shivering, confused senior dog inside before clicking the deadbolt into place. Sienna wasn't hosting a breakfast out of love. She was setting a stage. My aging dog's shedding and casual presence didn't fit her vision of a clean, high-class digital aesthetic for the photos she planned to post. I immediately grabbed my car keys from my office desk, my chest tightening with a quiet, fierce resolve to teach my sister a lesson about boundaries that she would never forget. The transition of a home from a place of comfort to an engineered social media backdrop happens with alarming subtlety. To understand how Barney ended up on a freezing garage floor, you have to understand the environment my children and I built after my husband passed away 5 years ago. Our house is defined by its lived-in warmth, the slightly scratched hardwood floors, the mismatched coffee mugs collected over decades, and the persistent smell of vanilla and pine during December. Barney was our anchor through our grief. He didn't care about perfection, he cared about presence. As his muzzle turned completely white and his back legs grew stiff, our daily schedule revolved around ensuring his absolute comfort. My sister Sienna, however, operates under a completely different framework. She views life through a clinical digital lens where every room is judged by its composition and lighting. To Sienna, relationships are assets, and an uncurated moment is a wasted opportunity. Whenever she visited, she would make passive-aggressive comments about our traditional decor or drop hints about how high-maintenance old pets were. I usually brushed it off as the quirky superficiality of a younger sister, assuming that underneath the filters, she still shared our core family values. When our relatives from Texas and New York announced they were flying in for the holidays, the logistics became a puzzle. My company required my physical presence for a final year-end wrap-up meeting on the morning of December 24th. Sensing my stress, Sienna took to our extended family group chat to announce her grand plan. She framed herself as the ultimate supportive sister, volunteering to coordinate a premier catering drop-off, decorate the dining area, and manage the entire family breakfast at my house so I could focus on my career. Our aunts and cousins showered her with digital praise for her selflessness. When I handed her the key that morning, I felt a genuine wave of gratitude. I saw her unloading large tote bags filled with identical minimalist ceramic plates, linen napkins, and specific neutral-tone table runners. She told me to relax and trust her creative vision. I drove to the office believing that my sister was finally stepping up to create a beautiful memory for our relatives, entirely blind to the reality that my living space was being systematically sanitized for an audience that didn't exist under our roof. The true nature of Sienna's intervention began to unfold the moment the office building parking lot emptied out. Sitting at my corporate desk, the hum of the fluorescent lights was interrupted by the distinct chime of my smart home application. The system is programmed to send a high-priority alert if the back exterior doors remain open for more than 3 minutes, a security feature we installed for Barney's safety. I tapped the notification, expanding the live, high-definition grid of my home's interior and exterior cameras. The kitchen camera showed a transformation that made my stomach drop. The colorful holiday cards my children had proudly taped to the refrigerator had been completely stripped away, replaced by minimalist eucalyptus garlands. But what caught my eye was the empty space next to the kitchen island. Barney's large large gray orthopedic bed was entirely missing. I quickly toggled the app to the driveway and garage cameras, my breath catching in my throat. There was Sienna, dressed in a pristine white designer winter sweater, dragging the heavy orthopedic bed across the gravel driveway. Barney was hobbling slowly behind her, his tail tucked between his legs, his white muzzle lowered in pure confusion. The outdoor temperature gauge on my app read exactly 34 degrees. I watched in absolute disbelief as Sienna opened the heavy side door of the detached garage, tossed the bed onto the cold, dusty concrete floor, and pointed inside. Barney, who always trusts family, slowly climbed onto his bed, curling into a tight ball to preserve his warmth. Sienna didn't hesitate. She stepped back, pulled the heavy door shut, and turned the deadbolt. As she walked back toward the house, she casually adjusted her sweater and checked her reflection in the kitchen window, completely unbothered by what she had just done. A cold, deliberate anger took over. I didn't announce my departure to my team. I simply grabbed my coat and laptop bag, walked straight out to my SUV, and started the engine. The drive from the downtown office back to Arlington usually takes 25 minutes. But that morning, every red light felt like an eternity. My mind was racing with the sheer arrogance of her action. She had locked a vulnerable senior animal into a freezing garage just because his presence didn't match the modern, sterile look she wanted to showcase to the extended family and her online followers. When I pulled into my driveway, the house looked deceptively peaceful. 3 of our relatives' rental cars were parked along the curb, and through the large front windows, I could see the soft glow of warm holiday lights. But I didn't go through the front door. I walked straight around the side of the house, my boots crunching loudly on the frozen grass, heading directly for the detached garage. When I unlocked the side door, the sudden rush of freezing air from inside made me shudder. There was Barney, huddled in the far corner, shivering noticeably against the concrete chill. The moment he saw me, his tail gave a weak, hesitant thump against the floor. I knelt down, wrapping my arms around his neck, feeling how cold his fur was. "I've got you, buddy," I whispered, my voice shaking with a mixture of heartbreak and fierce protection. I carefully lifted him up, guiding his stiff legs out into the pale December sunlight, and carried his heavy orthopedic bed back toward the main house. I marched straight through the back mudroom and into the kitchen, letting the heavy door slam behind me. The scene in the dining room was exactly what Sienna had engineered. Our aunts, uncles, and cousins were gathered around a perfectly curated table, laughing and holding identical minimalist coffee mugs. At the head of the room stood Sienna, holding up her phone on a tripod, directing our aunt on how to pose with a platter of pastries for a live video broadcast. The entire room went completely silent the second they saw me standing there, holding a shivering golden retriever and dragging a massive dog bed. Sienna's face turned bright red, her polished influencer smile instantly freezing as she realized her entire setup had just been compromised. Before she could speak, I looked past her and noticed a leather-bound event binder sitting open on the kitchen island right next to her tripod. Resting right on top of her printed digital schedule was an itemized invoice from the premium catering service she had bragged about hiring. My gaze fell naturally onto the paper, and my heart completely skipped a beat. The invoice didn't list Sienna's corporate business card or her personal account. Stamped clearly under the payment authorization line was the routing number for our shared family emergency fund, the local account my late husband had, established specifically to handle unforeseen household maintenance and medical expenses for the children. The digital ledger showed she had logged into the shared account 2 days ago to clear the final vendor balance. The emotional weight of the discovery was immense, but it did not manifest as anger. I quietly laid Barney's bed back down in his warm kitchen corner, plugged in his heating element, and watched him comfortably settle back into his sanctuary. Then I turned around and faced Sienna in front of the entire family. "This breakfast is over," I said, my voice maintaining a low, even register that echoed through the quiet house. "Sienna, you need to turn off your camera right now." Realizing that the physical evidence left her with absolutely zero room for denial, she tried to adopt a defensive, professional posture. She looked at me and argued that in her line of work, visual presentation is everything, claiming that a dog shedding near a buffet would look unhygienic to her local brand partners online. She stated that moving him for just 2 hours wasn't a big deal. "This is not a studio, Sienna," I replied softly, refusing to match her coldness with shouting. "This is a private home, and Barney is a member of this family. You used my trust to stage a commercial production without ever asking for my consent, and you locked an old, hurting animal in a freezing room just to hide him from a camera lens. That is a massive violation of our boundaries. You are looking at this through an outdated emotional lens," Sienna countered, trying to appeal to our aunts. "The family still gets an upscale holiday experience, and my platform gets the winter content it needs. If you make a scene now, it ruins the morning for everyone. You didn't give us an experience, Sienna," I said, pointing directly to the paperwork on the counter. You used the family emergency fund that was meant to protect this household. You didn't fund this with your business success or influencer revenue. You used our private family capital to finance a self-promotional project. And then you banished the family pet to a freezing concrete floor so he wouldn't ruin your shot. The silence that followed my statement was absolute. Our aunts and uncles looked at the invoice, then looked at Sienna with deep disappointment. The polished certainty drained completely from her face, leaving her looking remarkably young and suddenly vulnerable. She realized that by leaving her folders open on the family table, her actions were completely exposed. Sienna stared at the floor, her shoulders dropping as the defensive corporate shield completely disintegrated. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. When she finally looked up at me, the sharp, clinical gloss in her eyes was gone, replaced by real tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice cracking with an authenticity I hadn't heard in months. I got so consumed by trying to look successful and so terrified of looking ordinary in front of my peers that I started treating everything like a backdrop. I lost sight of what actually matters. I didn't mean to hurt Barney. I was just so desperate to look like I had made it. Seeing her tear-streaked face, my protective instinct as an older sister overtook my disappointment. I stepped forward and pulled her into a quiet embrace. The digital persona vanished, and she was just my sister again. "You don't have to perform for us," I murmured. "But you can never let your ambition cost you your empathy or your integrity." The resolution of the morning was executed with quiet, firm dignity. Facing the immediate reality of her actions, Sienna took accountability. She turned off her equipment, packed up her tripod, and spent the rest of the morning sitting on the kitchen floor, quietly feeding Barney treats and making sure his joints were warm. While the holiday breakfast was scaled back to a normal, unscripted family gathering, the experience established a profound, permanent boundary within our family dynamic. True connection can never be managed, branded, or sacrificed for the sake of a perfect presentation.